What's up, everybody? My name's Amanda. If you didn't know that, now you do. And today we're talking about a pretty weird story. This kind of actually hit my radar a few months back when the initial drop of the story at least hit it, or when the first arrest happened, and then I heard about the association with this particular individual. I don't know why I'm alluding to things because it's probably in the title. But yeah, Allison Mack arrested for human trafficking, sex trafficking, branding, other stuff like that. So for those of you who don't know, Allison Mack is an actress. She was one of the stars in the show SMALLVILLE, which I actually really enjoy. For as much as I like to insult the things that DC have been doing over recent years in terms of their television shows, I think they do a pretty decent job with them. And for all of its faults and for all of its issues over the years, I thought SMALLVILLE was a pretty good show, especially early on, and I think it ended pretty well. You know, it went on for 10 seasons. It can only be so bad. But either way, that is not the point of this. If you guys don't know, Allison Mack played Chloe on the show, who was the best friend, especially earlier on in the season. She wanted to be the journalist, reporter, kind of recruits Clark into doing that, and it just it goes from there. So she was a pretty big part of the show. It wasn't one of these things where it's oh, this totally obscure individual who is in this pretty popular show once. No, it's one of the main actresses of this show is arrested for a lot of weird shit. Now, honestly, celebrities and cults and weird religions aren't that unusual. I feel when it gets to the point when you have a lot of money, sometimes you just start doing really weird things. I'm 100% positive that rich people do stuff like they do in the Hostel movies. That there are rich people betting on human torture, because if human sex trafficking is a thing, there's no way yeah, trust me. Pretty much anything you can imagine in your darkest dreams is probably happening out there. Anyways, what ended up being exposed is that she was part of a cult or a group that was supposed to be branding itself as a help group for women, run by a guy named Keith Raniere. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce his last name. But then obviously when you looked into it a little bit more, it was a lot more sinister. And I'm not going to go into the full specifics of how people can fall for this stuff, how people can get engaged in this stuff, but it really has a lot to do with just breaking people down at who they are as a person, very similar to how they do rehab groups and things like that. They just make you feel more dependent on them. They break down certain parts of your spirit, and it's a very teetering line as to this is going to be rehab and this is going to be you losing your autonomy and us having more control over you. So that's basically what this situation ended up being. There's a lot of misleading, a lot of lying. One of the things that they actually did was brand their members. The members were told that they were going to be getting tattoos, and they went along with it willfully. They had to completely strip down naked, put on blindfolds, sit in a room, and what they thought was tattoos ended up being branding, burning initials into skin, specifically his initials into their skin. So that's pretty damn horrendous, and it's very common in the trafficking world. You'll see a lot of pimps will brand what they see as their property. You'll see a lot of traffickers brand who the people that they have under their possession. So it's really down in that trafficking area, but it was just totally branded as a public help group. It was called NXIVM, which was spelled N-X-I-V-M, but it's pronounced NXIVM. And they've just been operating as an organization. Now, Mac's specific inclusion, she's currently pled not guilty, but so did he. So that doesn't really mean much. But some people are saying that she was just as much a victim as the other females were. It was her job to recruit people. She went out and recruited the other women. And obviously, I feel like she'd be really easy to trust. She's a celebrity. You've seen her before. She's a woman, so you can sympathize with her more as a woman. And then it's kind of keeping him out of that recruitment equation until they're already kind of involved in that organization. And like I said, I don't want to break down the specifics of what goes into how somebody can fall down that web in a way that seems like they almost did it willingly, when clearly it's just manipulation, coercion, and a lot of blackmail tactics. That was another big thing. They use blackmail tactics to keep people involved. So in the beginning stages, when you're supposed to, be, forthcoming, or just open up about the issues in your life, open up about your secrets, about your fears, the things that you hold deeply, they're going to word it as, these are the things that are holding you back, you need to share them. They would then use those as blackmail. So nude photos, just terrible stories about people. And they would just kind of use it as blackmail to keep people around longer and to not expose what was going on underneath the surface. So you can look all into this, and it was pretty crazy, but it really just came down to a master and slave situation where these women were literally this guy's slaves very specifically his sex slaves. So in order to be a part of this group, you had to have sex with him, and that included Mac. And like I said, I'm very interested to see how this pans out, and I don't know if we'll ever fully know what her full involvement was, because obviously his defense is probably going to really push her involvement as being just as culpable, and her defense is going to really try to push her as being the victim. So I don't know if we're ever really going to know the truth behind it, or what went into her being a part of that group and how complicit she was in it. But she essentially was just another sex slave. She also was having sex with him and clearly was, you know, recruiting other people to be in that position. Again, not trying to excuse her of any of her faults or sins, however you want to, crimes, honestly. But it's a very, very weird situation. So one of the main proponents is that it kind of had a pyramid scandal scheme to it, in which women were encouraged to go recruit other women. So while Mac was one of the main recruiters, it was just kind of instilled in them to go out and find other people, which is really common in a lot of these different types of groups. Obviously not to this extent. A lot of them are just more kind of like money scams, and like you buy different packages, you can get into different classes and go encourage other people to sign up for these classes, and you just get, I feel like some people are just so ashamed to admit that they got scammed, they just keep going with it. This is obviously on a significantly larger scale. This is literally somehow managing to recruit people for what you're calling a mentor group, a women's mentor group, which is actually literally a sex trafficking operation. Very, very odd. There's actually a smaller group within NXIVM that was called DOS, which stood for Dominus Obsequious Sororium, which literally or roughly translates to Master over the Slave Women. So they really weren't trying to cover up what was going on here. And basically that collateral stuff that I mentioned with the blackmailing stuff was actually required upon joining, and it could be stuff about you, it could be stuff about your family members, which would even be worse. Like, for one thing, you get yourself mixed up in this, and then you trying to leave is gonna get your family's secrets exposed, your family's crimes exposed. Yeah, I can see why people would have, put up with it to avoid that kind of stuff happening. I guess they were actually forced to starve themselves to fit his ideal of a woman. And kind of in related news, Kristen Kruick actually had to say that she had no part in recruiting women because she had attended a NXIVM class. So if you guys don't know, Kristen Kruick was also on SMALLVILLE. She was one of the other main female characters. And I'm actually kind of looking at her note that she wrote here. She's saying that while she was there, she never experienced anything illegal. She was literally just there to deal with a self-help and personal growth for dealing with shyness, I guess, when she was 23 years old. So that probably, I don't know how long ago that would have been. I know Allison Mack's 35 right now. I don't know how old Kristen Kruick is compared to Allison Mack. So I wonder if they'll actually look into her more just to see. But like as of right now, she says that she wasn't actually involved in any of that higher level stuff. Because obviously you can't have a group like this running and have every single person being involved in that higher level sex scandal. You're gonna have the people that are just on the bottom providing the money and like just the fodder for it. And then apparently he had like a rotating group of like 15 to 20 people that he was actively sleeping with. So I'm sure it was one of these things that, you swab one person out from here, pull up someone new from the ranks. And like basically you kind of have to like pick your battles. You can't just recruit anybody and be like, yeah, this person's totally going to be compliant in the situation. You kind of have to figure out who is the most vulnerable. And it's very similar to how, like priests would go after, like Catholic priests would go after different people or different, children for their pedophilia. They would go after the ones that, had very high respect for the church. The families had very high respect for the church. Oftentimes fathers weren't present. Mothers were very busy working jobs just to support their kids. And again, had extremely high respect for the Catholic Church. That's why areas like Boston were really heavily hit by this, because of how deeply ingrained that culture is there. Like they pick their victims smart. They don't just grab whoever they're interested in right off the bat. They're very smart about who they pick because they have to be. They have to try to be self-sufficient. And obviously this stuff can only go on for so long before someone speaks, but they do go after the more vulnerable people that they can attain. So that's the word I was looking for. Vulnerable people is who they're going to go for. So for all the things she's being charged with, she's on the very similar scale as Raniere. They're both being charged with anywhere from 15 to life. I don't know if that's per individual that they've been found to have assaulted, abused, trafficked, and all the other crazy things that are going on there, or if it's just one 15 to life sentence. Obviously 15 years would be very minimal for the things that are happening here. Sure, you can make the argument that no one died, but human trafficking, in my opinion, as I've mentioned before, is I think one of the worst things that we do as a species, and then human sex trafficking obviously add into that being terrible. But I honestly think that people literally kidnapping in some way, selling people, or just doing terrible things like that. Just trafficking humans for their bodies is one of the worst things that we do as a species. Honestly, that we can look at other people that are like us, that are us, and think, yes, that is what I want to do with myself. I want to take advantage of them in such a way that they literally have no autonomy. And it's pretty disgusting. So, and then obviously add in the branding, which was apparently extremely physically painful, extremely, because they, like I said, they thought they were getting tattoos and they were actually getting branded with like a needle that was literally burning and searing their flesh. It apparently took a half an hour to do the initials properly, in which Allison Mack was allegedly holding people down by their chest to make sure that they couldn't move and telling them to feel the pain. So again, whether or not she was a victim herself, in some ways she was clearly into it, and I'm very disgusted and interested to see how this goes. I will try to follow the trial as closely as possible, but it is so weird where people can end up, like that's gonna end up being like a where are they now weird trivia type thing, just to throw out there other weird people that you should look into and the weird shit that they do, like Tom Cruise, definitely R. Kelly. Yeah, weird people out there. It's just kind of a good reminder that just because someone's a celebrity, just because you like the content that they provide in the world, and I made an entire video about this, but just because you like someone's demeanor and presence as a celebrity and what they put out there creative-wise doesn't mean that they're good people. And I feel that a lot of the times people have that misconception that, oh my God, that person's an amazing actor. I love all the roles they're in. They're so cool. That doesn't mean that that's what they're like in real life. That's not a reflection of who they are. And just always keep in mind that your heroes in the celebrity world might not be very good people. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. This is easily one of the weirdest things that I've seen. Like this kind of stuff happens all the time. There's probably other groups like this operating all over the world right now, but just because it was just, for one, it's actually like the week of, it's like the 80th anniversary of Superman, I think as of April 18th, and then this kind of comes out with related Superman news to kind of on the really dark side of that. So let me know what you guys are thinking in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if there's any other stories you guys would like me to cover, weird things that have been happening, or anything else you want my opinions on. So thank you all so much for watching. Have a fantastic day. We'll catch you all later.